Welcome to Chaos Pie, where we serve up sweet slices of pandemonium in just 15 minutes. Every day, you deal with the chaos of the reality of business, and you make decisions in a changing and uncertain environment. Chaos Pie is here to make your business life clearer, your decisions easier, and make you laugh while learning how. I'm Brian, and later in the show, I'll say something idiotic, and Garrison will make fun of me in an equally idiotic way. But first, let's talk about today's topic, which is Generation Y, which is an interesting topic because neither of us is Generation Y, and we're just going to talk about young people. We're just guys who are getting older who are going to talk about young people. And
we have different views.
Yes. Well,
I'm sorry,
you and I have different
interrupted.
views?
What now?
You and I have different. You mean you and I have different views, or Gen Y has different views?
No, we have different views of them. Because of your age, you see them as just people who are lazy and should do what you think they're supposed to do, and you think that they're massively entitled.
I don't know what you're talking about. I love Gen Y, and they love me, and I am friends with all of Gen Y, and they give me money.
Okay. So another thing about your generation, you're all liars, by the way. I just want to make that really clear. But see, my generation, I'm a young. You're a dyed-in-the-wool Gen X, and I am a young Boomer. So the difference here's the difference. You are more angry with them because you did everything yourself. You were the latchkey kid. You were I mean, your generation was. You were mowing a lawn at 2, making a ham sandwich at 1. You did everything yourself.
Well, we're very, let's draw some distinctions. Gen X is practical. Gen Y is optimistic. They're inventive. We're self-reliant. You had a great story. We probably won't want to say who the company was of the Gen Y workers who tried to rebel and set their own rules, and they all got fired.
They all got fired.
That's what happens when Gen Y thinks that the world's going to change to fit their ideals. And Gen X, we're a little bit, if we have any bitterness, it's because, we've run into a lot of bad situations at the wrong time through our lives. And we were taught, I don't know, I think a lot of Gen X people, we like to live on the edge. We wanted our lives to have meaning, but we were still kind of stuck in the Boomer perspective of you're going to earn your way through life and then you're going to retire, But Gen Y wants to retire at age 28.
Right, that's true. They do want to retire. First of all, I mean, for what you just said sounds like you're bitter and hateful. But if that's you want to call that's fine.
I love Gen Y. I told you. I don't know what you mean.
Well, the best way if we wanted to simplify things, if you're Gen Y, by the way, that's basically under 30, 20 to 30. If you're Gen Y, then you want someone to help you. Please help me do something. If you're Generation X, we're going to call that 30 to 50 almost, right? Then you did everything yourself. I can do it. I did everything. You should do it too. If you're a Boomer, I'm going to be 51, so that's a Boomer. We're kind of like someone should have already who's handling that? Someone should have done that yesterday, right? And then if you're over 75 years old, stuff just flies out of your mouth. It's just you can't even control. My dad is 82 years old, literally. Okay, my dad was at a restaurant. And they were playing music, and you could tell he didn't like the band from the expression on his face. And after the band finished, my dad said this, "Do you all take requests? Oh, well, then play something good." That's what he said.
Right.
So I think that there's a distinction between I need something done for me, help me, I can do everything myself. That should have already been done, and I just don't give a crap.
And Gen Y is we'll do it together. We're going to figure it all out together. We'll all do it together.
Look, I think it's commendable because I will tell you right now, you get a bunch of Gen Y guys, Gen Y people in a room together with a problem and have them deliberate for a couple of days, and at the end of 2 days, they've got a solution. I mean, they're the first generation born believing that every problem has a solution. You put a bunch of guys, but look, my generation, you put a bunch of guys my age in one room, and after, 2 days of deliberation, they've said, well, I've determined after 2 days of talks that Bill's an asshole. I mean, that's what they come up with. I mean, they just don't like each other as much. And I think Gen Y likes each other more. I think they get along more, and I think that's going to help them. I think that's going to be a positive
I can see that. I mean, I know a lot of Gen Y guys that have started their own companies, and they're amazingly They amplify my bitterness because they are so positive, They're like, I'm going to go out and believe it and make it so, and then they do, and I'm like, dang it, we didn't even allow ourselves to hope,
Gen X.
Well,
it's like grunge. We're, grunge, yeah.
Well, anyway, but wishing someone was like you is not a strategy, is it? No. That's called hope. That is hope, and hope is not a strategy.
Yeah.
I think, though, that the fact that they're being positive makes you angry is a very good sign of something. I mean, and here's what...
of a resentment, I think.
Well, but I mean, think about it. You guys had to do everything. You did everything yourself. You built everything. You did things yourself. And this generation was taken on play dates, driven everywhere. You know right now that if you're 19 years old, there's a good chance you don't have a driver's license.
Mm.
Because when it came time to get a driver's license, like, why would I get a driver's license? Because I've been driven everywhere. Driving seems to be taxing, problematic, expensive, and dangerous. I'm just going to get rides, and that's an odd thing. A lot of people don't have driver's license. I think if we're going to really talk about this in a fashion that's helpful or not, I think that I'd like to say a couple things. We did a lot of research, and my company, Win Solutions, done a lot of research on this. I speak about generational differences at conventions, and there's a couple things that I'd like to run past you there, Brian. I think that the problem that people have with this generation, number one, is they seem to want them to be like us, and we seem to want them to understand our experiences. But there's no connection here. I mean, if you're under 30 years old, you didn't have the same experience in high school that I had. If you're under 30 years old, the message was just say no to drugs. And when I was in high school, my shop teacher showed me how to make a bong. I mean, there's no similarity in that. I remember being in high school in 1978, and we got a memo, and the memo, it discouraged student-teacher dating, keep it on the down low. and if you're, even your age group and below, you were just handcuffed to the hood of your car. I mean, so I think that histories change, and history changes people. I think that situations change, and we just can't walk in each other's shoes. But I can't tell some 25-year-old person, you're entitled. Well, who did that? I did that. And I guess the truth is you didn't do that, Brian. You're too young to have entitled them. I'm that age. I spoiled them. I told them they could be anybody they wanted to be, no matter what. We told little girls in the ghetto they could be president. We told everybody everything. We just didn't want them to suffer from our own perceived self-esteem issues, and so we pumped them, but we rewarded them without accomplishment to build their self-esteem. And there are two problems. Number one is it worked well for the women, I think, and maybe not so much for the boys. I mean, right now, I forget what the statistic is, but 70-something% of women who are 28 years old are the breadwinners of their family if they're married, the husband.
Right.
You've seen them at the airport. You see the woman, she's 28, she looks good, she's got business shoes on, she's coiffed, she's got a nice outfit on, and husband's got a bad goatee, he's got long hair, he's got a baby strapped to his chest. I mean, he's not making the money. You can tell by in the airport.
Right.
So
I know a number of Gen Y people like that who are and I'm doing improv in Charleston, and we're getting scenes that come up where it's all about the woman saying to the guy, "It's okay, you contribute to the family." Contribute. Okay. Yeah.
That's right. You did bring in all the good weed, and we appreciate that. Anyway, so.
But and there's a bunch of differences. Like there was a study that Cisco did, and I don't know how many of our audience is really boomers, because actually I think it's more likely we're talking to Gen Y people.
If they haven't hung up on us yet, but go ahead.
Maybe they did. The Gen Y thinks that the internet is as important as air, water, food, and shelter.
Right.
Yeah. And there are certain Gen Y people who will not take a job if they don't have choice over which phone they get to use for work.
That's right. They also won't take a job if they cannot do social media at the job. They won't take the job.
Right. Yeah, and it's crazy. And I don't know, I do a lot of social media online. That's part of my job, and it has really changed, even for me, the way that I work, and I don't know how many people actually do this, but for me to get something done, if I got to write something, if I'm working on a book or whatever, or a project, I have to close everything, close the Facebook, close Twitter, close Pinterest, close all that stuff, turn my phone over so I can't see a text, and that's the only way I can get stuff done. But I also noticed that that after about 30 minutes, I feel like I've accomplished something and I'm bored and I want to see what's going on in the world.
Right.
So the attention is really divided, and people are not. I don't think people are able to work for as long without checking in to the internet.
Well, I think that's true, but I've watched some young people who are basically doing everything at the same time and have some level of productivity. I do think they do that better than we do. So I think we have to acknowledge the fact that we may not like the fact they're multitasking that much, but to some degree they're doing it better. Now, statistically, though, women are much better multitaskers than men in general.
Right.
So I think that, and
there have been some research lately that showed that we're not as good at multitasking as we think we are.
That's right. I've seen that recently, and I think it's true. Yeah. I mean, if you're doing three things at one time, chances are you suck at two of them. I mean,
that's right.
Right. It's like, and look at all these car accidents from texting. I mean, I'm sorry, texting is now past drunk driving as a leading killer of humans in automobials.
I know. That's why I'm so mad at those. When you're driving and you see a brake light that flashes at you, like I already know the brake light's on. I don't need it to flash at me because it's distracting me from my texting.
Well, you need medication. If you're disturbed by flashing brake lights, then your biggest problem is not texting. But
that's true.
Yeah, but I think it's an interesting thing, but I mean I want to say something that. I mean, just being realistic, these young people are the future. They may not look like it right now, but they are, and they're going to have better ideas than we do, and that's called evolution, And things have to change. And before you can have evolution, you have to kind of have a revolution, You kind of have a revolution. They can be really different, and then it evolves from there. And I think that it's hard for us to see what it's going to look like. It's not going to look like us. But they're going to be who they are. It's the sense of urgency that my generation has an issue with. Sense of urgency. We think they should carry the stress that we do, and they don't. And they don't carry the stress is because we did that. We created an environment that wasn't as stressful as we had, and we did it on purpose. I mean, in kindergarten, if you're under 30 years old, when you were in kindergarten, okay, all right, they said, "Welcome to kindergarten. We love you. We care about you. We're going to reward you without accomplishment." To build your self-esteem, you're okay no matter what. We love you. And if you're doing macaroni art, whether the macaroni goes on your paper or your face, it's still art. Okay. So, and when I was in kindergarten, they said, okay, when the nuclear explosion goes off and the bright light flashes, get under your desk. That's what they told us. And then after that was nap time, and I couldn't sleep. I still haven't slept. Yeah. So, I think there's definitely a different thing that happened. I think with your generation, with Generation X, I think that your parents they were so busy. They were just trying to earn a living, and they were the first generation to really have divorces and to be separated. They're the first generation to kind of just let the kids do what they wanted to do. Now, we had a lot of freedom back then, but we were also required to be at dinner at 6:30 every night in a lot of households. Yeah, and there were some structure there. So, and
I'm not the best example of that because my parents didn't divorce and so on and all that. But one thing I know about just things that have changed in the world, through at different times in my life. I used the internet first in 1995, and it didn't really exist. It was like, hey, create a web page. This is cool. But there's not really websites. There aren't very many websites out there. Right. And so, we taught ourselves the internet. We created the internet. Gen X kind of created the internet. And now Gen Y comes in, and Gen Y can use it as a tool, and they grew up with it. They're used to it. But then, there were, I don't know. We had kind of, I feel like we're in between. We're so in between boomers because boomers had a worldview that's really been changed by technology. And I think Gen Y grew up with that change, but we've seen both sides of it. And so it's a little weird.
I think it is weird. And I'm not the best example either because, I was grew up a little more Gen Y the way my parents were, My parents said, well,